Two soccer teams trending in opposite directions, but was one coach too harsh in what he had to say? Plus, we discussed the return of men's hockey. The guys hand out their midseason MVP awards, and as usual, we give our final roars. All that and more right here on Bobcat Breakdown. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bobcat Breakdown. My name is Will Fowler, and here with me today is Brian Schwartz and MJ Baird. And guys, are you ready?
Always ready, MJ.
I was born ready.
Love to hear it. Let's get right into it then. Men's soccer celebrated Senior Day on Saturday, and they took on Manhattan and defeated the Jaspers 2-1. Keeping with that senior theme, guys, how does this senior class stack up against senior classes of recent memory?
Go for it.
All right, sure. So I'll break it down. I've been here 4 years, so I've now seen 4 senior classes. I don't think this is the best one, Brian, but I think it's number 2. So my freshman year, 2015-16, the 2 seniors on the team that really stuck out, there's more than 4, but 2, more than 2, but the 2 who were the most relevant, Toby Esch and Eric Panzer. Team won 1 conference game. Really, not much going on there. This is, by the way, after an undefeated MAC record. So 2015-16, not the senior class. The next year, 16-17, my sophomore year, Ryan Scheiderman, really the only senior that rings a bell. Team lost in the MAC championship here at home, so again, still not the best senior class that I've heard. However, last year, 2017-2018, this is the senior class that I think is the best, so I'll come back to them in a second, and we'll take a look at this year's senior class. Rashawn Dolly, Matt Taylor, Christian Casagrande, Griffin Custer, Oscar Evans, Derek Parker, Colton Grob, Alex Osa. Of course, not all guys that are everyday starters for this team, but for me, it was last year's seniors who were the most important. I'll get to them in a sec, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I see what you mean, but I'm going with this year's senior class because I think that they are a lot more important to the team's success this year. You look at the goals scored already. I don't care about positions right now. Just look at the statistics. Mm-hmm. 7 of Quinnipiac's 17 goals so far scored by seniors. Okay. Last year, they only scored 18 goals on the season, 3 by seniors. You could say defense, whatever.
So you're looking at stats? I'm
looking at stats.
Okay.
I don't care about the intangibles. You could say whatever you want about that stuff, leadership, sure. But I'm looking at stats. The seniors this year are better than last year.
All right, so I'm going to have some stats for you.
Sure.
All right, last year's seniors, let's look at how many minutes they logged per game. Will Pastari, defender, 1,994 minutes. Brian, I did the math for you. Divide that by 90 minutes per game. It's 22 games. Max Rothenbucher, 1,619 minutes divided by 90 minutes per game. That's 18 games. James Doig, he's the one that's really cementing this senior class as the better one, in my opinion. 1,608 minutes. Divide that by 90, you have 18 games. And then Huggins and Cordero, 918 and 293 respectively. So for me, it's the 3 that I mentioned at the top. Pastari, Rothenbucher, and Doig. They, for me, addition to having the stats, they may not have the goals and the assists, but they were out there all the time for this team. Eric DaCosta relied on them game in and game out. Aside from that, those 3 were such great character guys in the locker room. Doig, a graduate student, because he redshirted 1 year when he got hurt. He was the best player, in my opinion, to come through this program in probably the past 5 years. You can go back to Borja and Goita, but he was a goaltender, so even that you have to look at differently. It's those 3 versus the 2 that you said that sets it apart.
But even, I know you love Rashawn Dolly. He's part of the senior class,
Correct.
too. That's a big piece.
100%.
Matthew Taylor, these are big pieces in this class that are big keys to their success.
For sure.
Well, guys, the Bobcats win on Saturday, extended their winning streak to 5 straight, and that's a streak that began all the way back on September 15th against Albany. So let's go ahead and put ourselves in this position next week. Will we still be talking about their winning streak? Will it have ended before next show?
Brian, you can take this one first.
No, we're still going to be talking about their winning streak. 2 wins this week, and you can book that. They're going to beat Siena, and they're going to beat Iona. They're better than both of these teams. Quinnipiac is already 3-0. In the MAC, they need to win these games. Quinnipiac wants to be at the top of the conference come the end of the year. You look at what happened last year. They lost to Fairfield in the playoffs. You don't want to have to face that #1 team, go on the road, They lost in penalty shots last year. You don't want to be in that situation again. You want to be the team that's on top coming into it, and I think that will give them an advantage. So they will win these next 2 games. They are better than both of these other 2 teams.
I don't disagree with you that they want to be on top of the conference. I think every team wants to. I don't disagree with you that they are better than these 2 teams. However, all streaks must come to an end at some point. We saw it with the women's soccer team. Last Wednesday, they lost at home against St. Peter's. Dave Clark called it a trap game. Now, I think either of these 2 games this week, Siena or Iona, could be trap games for the Bobcats. Siena at home midweek, I don't see being as much of a problem, but really it's Saturday against Iona on the road. Iona hasn't lost at home yet. Granted, they've only played 2 games. They're 1-0-1 in New Rochelle, New York. But they lead the league in goals with just under 2 per game. Granted, again, I'll give you this, that's not just conference play, that's out of conference as well. So while both of these teams are below Quinnipiac in the standings and in the preseason coaches poll, that lines up perfectly for me as a trap game. So Saturday against Iona, that could be a loss.
The other thing for Quinnipiac is they got a hot goalie.
Yeah.
Jared Mazzola's been great. He's 2nd in saves per game in the MAC.
Yeah, he won the spot.
He's been outstanding. You got Eamon Whalen scoring all these game-winning goals.
Yeah.
He's been outstanding. So you've got a couple hot players on this team.
It's got to come to an end.
They're going to win
Can't go undefeated.
They'll win these 2.
All right, guys, well, let's shift to more of an individual standpoint. We all know in soccer, cohesion in the midfield is so crucial for success. That was almost lost when sophomore Simon Hillinger went down with an injury earlier in the season. Now that he's back, the team has looked far better. So is Hillinger the best player on this team?
Nope.
He's important. He's very important. He's not the best player on this team. We're going to disagree on the best player.
Yep.
Eamon Whalen, to me, is the best player on this team. He's the best scorer on this team. He might be the best scorer in the MAC.
Best scorer on this team. You're right.
You need to score to win ball games, right?
Yep, but scoring's not the only part of the game.
It's not the only part.
It's very important.
Right. But to win a game, you could have the best defense in the world, right?
You got to win 1-0 at least.
In the world. Right.
Yeah.
Eamon Whalen's the best player. He's the most important.
He's the best goal scorer.
Yes. But he's still the most important and the best player on this team.
So why is he better than Rashawn Dolly?
Because he's putting the ball in the back of the net. That's what you need, yes.
Okay, so you're basing it just off goals.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the position, I mean, obviously it's different, but...
So I see Whalen as the best goal scorer. I see Whalen as the most important player on this team. However, I don't think he's the best player. I think Rashawn Dolly's the best player. Here's why. Bigger, faster, and stronger than 99% of the people, not only on his team, but as well as on the other team, anyone on the field. He can blow by defenders out wide. His 6'2", 190-pound frame, he has absolute wheels for that height. He can finish with finesse. He can use his body to create and hold body position. I mean, this guy's a freak athlete out there. He's dominant. Head coach Eric DaCosta has said this before. He is so dominant, has so much potential. Does he put up the numbers, the glamour, the flash that Whalen does? No. He's played on Jamaican national teams. I mean, he is the best player on the field. I think he's the most talented player on the field. Like I said, he may not be getting the most credit for his talent, but just the way he is out there, he's a freak athlete, and I think that makes him the best player.
Well, it goes the same way. You're saying he's the best at his position, at what he does, he's the best because of his size.
They both play forward, though. That's the thing.
But he's not the same because he doesn't score as much as Whalen. You need to score.
So Whalen's a more potent goal scorer.
Right.
Yes. But what I'm saying, in my opinion, that doesn't make him the best player. Just because he can score the most goals on the team and be the most clutch guy and finish the most in the clutchest of situations doesn't make him the best player, doesn't make him the best athlete. I think Rashawn Dolly is better.
Guys, let me go ahead and play devil's advocate here real quick. Would Rashawn Dolly and Eamon Whalen, would their stats be as impressive as they are if they don't have midfielders like Simon Hillinger and Matthew Taylor to service them the ball up top?
Of course not.
That's an amazing point, and also their numbers wouldn't be as good if they didn't have each other.
Right.
You saw the goal in overtime against Manhattan this past week. Dolly wins a battle in the box, his shot is saved, and there's Whalen to clean it up. Mm-hmm. So you bring up a great point. But just because they have these great midfielders, I mean, James Doig last year contributed to Dolly's success too, doesn't mean that Hillinger's the best player.
All right, well, let's switch field here. We'll head over to women's soccer, and they're on a streak of their own, but they've lost both of their past games this week by a combined score of 5-1. Here's what head coach Dave Clark had to say on how the team has played lately.
I always put it in academic terms. If I'm a professor and I teach and I tell you what's on the test tomorrow, and then you study something else and you fail the test, whose fault is that? It's not mine, because I've told you, I'm giving you the question, I'm giving you the answers. Here's the question, here's the answers. Just write it down tomorrow. And I'm teaching history, and they came in and submitted a geography test. That's why they lost.
So, guys, this question is short and simple. Was Dave Clark too harsh in his assessment?
No.
Not at all.
I mean, we're both in agreement on this.
Come on.
St. Peter's has 2 wins this season, right? Coming into the season, going to be one of the worst teams in the league. If Quinnipiac wants to be the best team in this league, you have to beat St. Peter's.
Right. On a Wednesday at home, too.
Call them out. Do it. You know what? I'm sick of all these coaches going off on these teams. It's about time a coach actually did this.
Right.
Maybe this will wake them up. You know what? Maybe this is their wake-up call, and this could be why they end up finishing in the top 2.
What was it? The Penn State, when they lost to Ohio State, their coach came on, he said, you know, we can't be comfortable being great. Penn State, great team, but you got to be elite. Ohio State's an elite program. So I'm with you all for calling out players when they need to be called out. But to answer the question, Will, is he too harsh? I mean, no, he relates it to academics. He didn't call out players for not being good enough. I mean, if we're talking to a middle school soccer team, sure, okay, maybe you're too harsh. Talking to 18 to 22-year-old women, they know that their performance wasn't good enough, and they know what Clark said is the truth. So no, he wasn't too harsh at all. You know, he was saying they wanted to play with speed through the midfield, and then the team went out there and slowed it down in the midfield. How much clearer can you get? It's black and white to me. See this? This is a gray suit. This is navy blue gray.
Yes.
See this gray suit? There's no gray area. It's all black and white.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, guys, I agree with you. I don't think this is something that you can sugarcoat. We're going to take a short commercial break, but when we return, we'll have our field hockey beat reporter Josh Silverman join us on the set. Stay tuned.
If you like debate, that's a converted relief pitcher making the start because it was a doubleheader. You got no hit by a relief pitcher. You can't tell me that's not embarrassing.
Analysis.
You can see his stance, his positioning right there is excellent.
And a side of entertainment.
Is he right or is he crazy?
Well, we all know the answer to that. He's a bit crazy, but I gotta say, you know.
Then join us on Bobcat Breakdown.
From the court to the ice to here on the diamond, we'll discuss everything you need to know about Quinnipiac athletics.
Bobcat Breakdown, Tuesdays at 9:30.
Welcome to the WQAQ Morning Show. Dan Ball and Emma Spagnolo joining you here from the QAQ studios in Hamden. And Emma, it is that time of year again.
Whether you're on the quad, in your room,
or off campus,
tune in to Q30 News for stories from student journalists you can trust.
we're covering the latest here on campus and in the surrounding communities.
Get the news you need to know every Wednesday night.
From Hamden to Hollywood, we are your source for entertainment news.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. I'm Will Fowler. This fall, Quinnipiac's field hockey team has seen some big wins and some equally crushing defeats, including a current 3-game skid. We now welcome field hockey beat reporter Josh Silverman to the desk. And Josh, what's going on?
No, guys, I'm happy to be here. Happy to break down everything that's going on in Big East stands. You had Emma Carmen write it on the board for us. My handwriting's not nearly this neat, as MJ can attest to, but I'm excited to break this down.
All right, so Josh, right now, Quinnipiac field hockey, here are our standings. Right over here, they sit at 1-3. But you're going to tell us at 1-3, they control their own destiny?
So, yes, they do. So they've lost to UConn, Liberty. They beat Georgetown. They're playing Providence this Friday, and they lost to Villanova last Friday. So the way it works is the top 4 teams in the conference make the Big East tournament at the end. So Quinnipiac is sitting at 1-3. You might think, well, there's no way they can make the Big East tournament. That's not true. So here we have the remaining schedule for all 4 teams that are in contention for the final 2 spots. We've locked in UConn and Liberty in those final 2 spots. So what do we have left? We have First of all, we'll start with Quinnipiac, as this is Q30 television. They play Providence this Friday. They need to win that game. If they lose that game, or honestly any of the games after, they play Temple and Old Dominion. Those 2 games they should definitely win. Providence will be the big test. But if they lose any of these games, the best they can get to is 3-4, which their record has been the last couple of years. That's most likely not MJ, not going to be enough.
3 wins won't get you in, but
Nope.
4 usually does. So you're saying if Quinnipiac were to go 3-0, beating these 3 teams, they'll be 4-3.
They will be 4-3.
Okay.
That essentially makes Providence, that essentially eliminates them, because this is a loss right here.
Yep.
Liberty is very good. That's a loss. We'll give Georgetown the win.
Sure.
You know, whatever we want to say. Well, no, we're not giving Georgetown the win. Sorry about that. They are 2-5. They are eliminated. We are not saying Providence has a shot.
Right.
Quinnipiac finishes at 4-3. Now here is where it gets a little dicey. Villanova has already beat Quinnipiac, so in head-to-head, they have the tiebreaker. They play Temple, that's a win. They play Old Dominion, that's a win. They play UConn, that's a loss.
Right.
They finish at 4-3.
Right, so we are making some assumptions here. These games haven't happened yet.
Of course.
So Quinnipiac, win, win, win.
Right.
Villanova, win, win, loss.
Mm-hmm.
And then Providence, loss, loss, loss.
Right. So Providence is not winning again this year.
So that would knock
Sorry,
them
Providence.
out at 2-5.
Right.
We mentioned you need that 4 number to win. So now take us through Georgetown.
So this is where it gets a little complicated. Georgetown's playing UConn and Liberty, again, the top 2 teams, and then they play Providence. So we gave them this win. So they are at least at 3-4. You see, that's why Emma had to write on the board. I don't know what that is.
So you're saying loss, loss, win, hypothetically.
Right, hypothetically.
That would put them at 3-4.
That puts them at 3-4. So off those projections, here are our final standings. UConn at 1, Liberty at 2, because UConn will beat Liberty. That'll be their only loss.
Sure.
Nova gets the 3 seed off this, and Quinnipiac gets the 4 seed. So now Quinnipiac has 1 out. They're in control of their own destiny. Obviously, it's destiny. Technically,
Sure.
you can't control it. Common sports term, that's what we use right now.
So, real quick, Villanova is ahead of Quinnipiac because head-to-head, Villanova has the win.
Correct.
Okay.
Quinnipiac lost at Villanova last Friday, a crushing defeat.
Yeah.
Something that originally, when I looked at the standings and the schedule, I thought would eliminate Quinnipiac. Turns out it does not, based off the schedule.
So now we're getting real crazy.
Now we're getting real crazy.
This Liberty game right here for Georgetown, if they win this 3-4 is going to turn into what? A 4-3, right? So now, Josh.
Yep, got that for you.
Write it in red right here, 4-3.
So 4-3.
Neatly, please. Good, okay, 4-3. So now if you look, 1, 2, 3 teams at 4-3. So when you have 3 teams.
And then we'll change this down here.
Okay.
Just because they're 6-2 now,
Sure.
or 5-2.
So when you have 3 teams in a tiebreaker, the tie-breaking system changes. So it's unclear right now to us, we're just finding all this information out, what exactly the Big East field hockey tiebreaker for 3 teams is. However, take it away.
So here's what we believe it is. We believe that it is, they become their own mini conference, essentially. And what happens is the tiebreaker is against the top team. So they will all be 0-1 against UConn. Obviously, UConn did not lose in conference. Against Liberty, the only team to beat them will have been Georgetown.
Remember, back to this game right here.
Right.
This is the question.
This is the big question.
Right.
That's a little question mark right there.
Not a big one.
So even though Quinnipiac will have beaten Georgetown earlier this season, they will not have the tiebreaker over them. So it'll be 1 UConn, 2 Liberty, 3 Georgetown. Now,
Quinnipiac and Villanova, what happens here?
So the way it works is now Georgetown is now the 3 seed. So what happens is it's Quinnipiac and Villanova against Georgetown in the 3 slot. Now Nova already lost to Georgetown this year, and Quinnipiac already beat them. So assuming everything happens with Quinnipiac the way it should, everything basically remains the same, except for this game is now a W for Georgetown. Quinnipiac still gets the 4th spot.
Right.
So again, they control whatever, as long as they win these 3 games. Providence is home, by the way, which is big for the Bobcats.
This Friday.
This Friday at 3 p.m. As long as they beat Providence on Friday and take care of business against Old Dominion and Temple, which they should, because this Quinnipiac Bobcats team is not as great as they were last year, but they're still a good team. They will be playing in the Big East tournament for the first time in program history.
Well, we hope you stayed with us. If not, we're going to have to get some web content up there, Josh.
Definitely.
Some sort of touchscreen or something like that. All right, Will, if you're with us, take it away.
We're going to go to another quick commercial break because, quite frankly, you guys just gave me a killer headache. But when we return, we'll head to the rugby pitch and discuss the team's recent struggles. Stay with us.
Hello, and tonight on Sandwich News, we will determine what makes a good sandwich and a bad sandwich. First, the standard sandwich. Uninspired and, frankly, a little gross. But we have here a Ray and Mike sandwich, the Cadillac of sandwiches. And if you want one, well,
come on down to Ray and Mike's at 3030 Whitney Ave, Hamden, Connecticut. Open every day from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Qcash is accepted.
now that's a sandwich.
Let's get it going. Sports Pause starts right now.
We start tonight with some basketball coverage.
And here again, Aaron Robinson hits the shot of his life. I don't know what that celebration is, MJ, but I'm loving it.
Is that Fortnite?
Welcome back inside Studio 125. I'm Will Fowler with MJ Baird and Brian Schwartz. And guys, the three-time defending national champion Quinnipiac rugby team took another loss last week. They fell 24-21 to Harvard. The Bobcats currently sit tied for 8th in the NARA and may even miss the postseason. Guys, here's the question. Can this team win a playoff game if they do sneak into the playoffs?
So I don't want to give you a bigger headache than you already have, Will.
I need a break, so let's hear it.
But we've crunched the numbers yet again. Yeah. It's a very statistics show. All right.
Bobcat Breakdown, eh?
So,
like a math class.
9 teams in the NIRA, correct?
Yep.
8 teams make the playoffs.
Yep.
1 and 2 are most likely going to be Dartmouth and Harvard. Mm-hmm. After that, it is wide open.
It is.
Quinnipiac could be the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, most likely. Probably going to be in that 3, 4, or 5 spot.
Yep.
Most likely, that means they will win their first round game.
Right.
Because most likely
1 versus 8, 2, 7,
correct.
3, 6, and 4, 5.
So Quinnipiac, if that is the case, can play a Norwich. They can play Army.
Yeah.
They could play Brown. They could play AIC. All of those teams who they can beat.
Correct. So really, if you look at the schedule the rest of the way, Quinnipiac's biggest game, if you will, that can set them farther down than that potential 3 spot would be the Army game.
Right.
They have Brown, and Brown not a strong team in the NIRA. So A, assume Quinnipiac would win that, and B, losing to them would knock Quinnipiac down further, but we're going on the assumption that they would win. So really that Army game is the biggest factor there. If Quinnipiac wins that, they know they can't really move into that 1 or 2 slot, but if they lose it, correct, they can move down to 4.
Or they could go down to 4 or 5.
Correct. So can they win a playoff game? Yes, because they're both most likely going to be the higher seed. I mean, statistically, you'd think the higher seed's going to win. Upsets are possible, that's for sure. This team's a young team, not a whole lot of playoff experience, even though that's interesting to say for the 3-time national champions. So, Will, to answer your question, yes, they can. I need some ibuprofen. I got a headache.
All right, yeah, definitely.
4 in a row would be tough, though.
4 national championships? Oof.
Yeah, definitely not the kind of question you expect to ask coming into the season, but that's the situation they've played themselves into nonetheless. We're going to move to the ice. Men's ice hockey played in their preseason tune-up game on Saturday and handled the Prince Edward Island Panthers 5-2. The team enters this season with a few guarantees and a number of question marks, which makes this the perfect time to introduce a new segment called Climbing the Sleeping Giant. I'll give you a list of 4 players or groups, and your job is to rank them from least important to most important. So I guess we'll start with you, MJ. You ready?
I'm ready, but we can't climb the sleeping giant. It's close, just for the record.
Oh, yeah, well, of course. I'm metaphorically climbing the sleeping giant. Here's your 4. Odin Tufto, Chase Prisky, the goalies, and the freshmen. So least important to most important. Where do you have them ranked?
All right, this is actually really good. These 4 categories are all, I think, quite important, but you do have to rank them. Yep. So, Will, I'll start at the bottom, you said? Is that right?
Yes, least important.
Least important for me, number 4. And don't take this the wrong way, because like I said, all these are important, but the goaltenders are number 4 on my list. Really, last year, in the second half of the year, they weren't that bad. Both had save percentages above 900. I also think they got left out to dry a lot from a Quinnipiac team that had a really down year for years past. The bigger issue for the goaltenders for me is they split time. I'm a believer in picking one and rolling with it. I think you're more successful that way, but Quinnipiac has 2 talented goaltenders, so we'll have to see. Number 3 now, Odin Tufto. He's in his sophomore year. The most important thing for me is no sophomore slump. He has giant expectations after after his freshman campaign. 41 points, 9 goals, and 32 assists, that is. Quinnipiac really needs him to repeat that performance because they need goals. They really do. They need more up front, and successful freshmen would help take some pressure off of Tufto. So that's number 3. Transitioning right into freshmen, though, number 2, that's where the freshman group falls for me. 12 new guys, nearly 50% of this roster is turnover for skaters, putting the goalies aside. So you have lots of spots to fill, Brian. There's a new rule in the NCAA. You have 19 skaters now. In past, it's been 18. So 19 skaters per game you can dress. Quinnipiac only has 10 everyday starters returning from last year. That leaves 9 open spots. Now, there could be some guys who didn't get a lot of time last year who filled those roles as upperclassmen, but those freshmen, there's a lot of room for them to crack the starting lineup, so I think they're very important. However, the most important for me is going to be Chase Prisky. He's a senior. He's now a second-year captain. He's a leader on and off the ice. He's been to the national tournament. He's been to the national championship game his freshman year. He has the experience. He won an ECAC tournament. Plenty to prove for Prisky, but I think the power play runs through him. I expect a lot of goals. He's only had 7 the past 2 years. I'd say 15 goals is a good benchmark for him this year.
I agree. I can totally agree with you, but I'm going to play devil's advocate and go kind of opposite of what you said. I put Tufto last because, to me, we should expect this from him. 41 points last year. We should expect that he repeats, maybe gets even better as a sophomore, correct?
As long as there's no sophomore slump.
Right.
But yes.
But we're expecting him to be good.
Correct.
Then I put Prisky third. I think that we also expect that he's going to be great. We expect him to be a leader. Then I put the goaltenders because I think that Petrozelli is going to have a great year this year. I think that he's going to take that next step up because he needs to.
He does.
He really needs to at this point in his career. Then I put number 1, the freshman class. You said there's a lot of room on this roster for the freshman class to make an impact. They need to, and they need a new identity for this team, and that class can do it.
All right.
Yeah, Brian, I have to agree with you real quick before we head to one more break. Freshman class is so big, it's make or break, honestly. I think if they perform well, then the sky is the ceiling, as Michael Jordan says. But if they don't perform well, then who knows what could happen. We're going to take one more break, but when we return, we'll hand out some mid-season awards. Stay tuned.
Hello, and tonight on Sandwich News, we will determine what makes a good sandwich and a bad sandwich. First, the standard sandwich. Uninspired, and frankly, a little gross. But we have here a Ray and Mike sandwich, the Cadillac of sandwiches. And if you want one, well,
come on down to Ray and Mike's at 3030 Whitney Ave, Hamden, Connecticut. Open every day from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Qcash is accepted.
Now that's a sandwich.
Let's get it going. Sports Pause starts right now.
We start tonight with some basketball coverage.
And here again, Aaron Robinson hits the shot of his life. I don't know what that celebration is, MJ, but I'm loving it.
Is that Fortnite?
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. And guys, it's a little too early for award season, but it's never too early to speculate here at Q30. We've seen some great individual performances thus far, so MJ, we'll hop right into it. Who's your midseason fall sports MVP?
This one's real simple. We talked about him at the top of the show. It's Eamon Whalen. Mr. Clutch, 7 goals, confident coming back after last year's injury. Pretty self-explanatory from my...
100% agree with you. Got to go with my Mets friend there, Eamon Whalen, the MVP.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, my MVP is probably Kat Miller. She's put this volleyball team on her back. She leads in almost every statistical category, and the ones that she doesn't, she's second. So definitely an MVP for performance. Now we're going to discuss the Rooks. A number of freshmen have made their marks on their spring season. So, Brian, we'll start with you this time. Who's your midseason Rookie of the Year?
Went with 2 co-rookies of the year, Michaela Adams and Elisa Van Winkle of the field hockey team, both tied with 4 goals atop the team. They've been the scoring for this team. They've been the most important pieces so far, in my opinion, for the field hockey team.
Yeah, I'm going to go women's soccer, Selena Salas, freshman from Spain. She's playing in the offensive midfield, if you will. Still learning the systems, perhaps, but she gives the Bobcats a lot more freedom on that offensive midfield end, so I got to go with her. Yeah,
MJ, I'm with you. I'm not going to explain it. You took the words right out of my mouth, but I took Selena Salas, too. Now it's time for everyone's favorite segment. It's time for our final roars. So, MJ, the floor is yours.
Quinnipiac fired men's lacrosse coach Eric Feketa on Saturday. This news comes after the university completed an investigation into student code of conduct violations involving hazing and alcohol. Now, it's unclear what role, if any, Feketa had in this, but this wasn't the team's first run-in with the code of conduct. In 2008, individual members of the team were suspended for similar actions, but despite the bad behavior, Feketa's teams have been successful. In 2016, the former head coach led his team to its first conference championship and first NCAA tournament win. He was also the MAC Coach of the Year twice in the last 3 years. So when you think about it, it boils down to this. Where is the line between the value of success and the extent of wrongdoing? With all recent national news involving sports coaches like Urban Meyer, though different in nature, this underlying concept of success versus wrongdoing is the same. And that leaves administrators to weigh the factors and make a decision. The head coach is the face of the team, and he or she is the first to take the blame. Morally, Quinnipiac made the right decision.
Baker Dunleavy was brought to Quinnipiac to do one thing: turn the men's basketball program around. It's been a little over a year, and he's already done just that. And it's not just about winning. It's about what leads to the winning: recruiting. In this freshman class, the first one Dunleavy has recruited, he's covered almost the entire Northeast. Maryland and D.C., check. Long Island, check. Philly, check. New York City, check. In talking to Dunleavy at Media Day yesterday, he stressed the importance of taking advantage of the entire surrounding region. All the ties to some of the best high school and AAU basketball in the country. Quinnipiac is bringing that basketball right here to Hamden.
Well, that's going to do it for our show tonight. I want to thank everybody behind the scenes, all the producers for making this production possible, and for Brian Schwartz and MJ Barrett, I'm Will Fowler. Have a great night.